Hi, I'm Don Stanek, your instructor for Certified Sales Interrogator. Now at this point, we just have a ton of building blocks at our disposal because we talked about the story and what are all the data points and points of resolution that we need to get in the story in order to get a more complete understanding of the person with whom we are communicating with. We also did a pretty deep dive into the types of questions that are available to us. And we also talked about transitional statements, if then or conditional statements, and follow-up questions. We have a ton of fragments, a ton of little building blocks. Going forward, this chapter is all about practical scenarios. Every day in your business, you're dealing with buyers and sellers. You might be dealing with a team member that might be a boss or an assistant, someone above you, below you, or they might be a peer. I want you to take some time and really pay attention during this chapter. I want you to take notes. I know that role play is not comfortable for a lot of us, but I would also recommend that you go find a buddy that you can role play with around some of these scenarios. There's a finite number of things that are going to happen in any scenario that you're walking into in your job, in your business. For example, if you're at an open house, there's kind of a limited number of things that are going to happen there, right? Same with a listing presentation, and then also with basic handling objections or dispute resolution. We kind of can identify a pattern. We know what's probably going to be said. I need to be prepared to be able to say something, and I need to also condition myself for an understanding that I need to probe deeper. I need to probe deeper, and probing is really asking questions. I need to not be emotional, and I need to be in control of what I'm thinking. And so the best way to do this is to start gaming out these scenarios in your own mind, in your own business before they happen. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go through a variety of scenarios and create a little vignette with some of the language I use in some of the situations that I think you're probably going to be in every single day. All right, let's get started. Okay, let's say a buyer or a prospective buyer walks into an open house. And we don't really know if it's a buyer or not. It might be a buyer and a seller. It might be a neighbor. We just don't know. But we're going to have to start asking questions. Now, how many times are you in this scenario? All the time if you're regularly holding open houses. Many sales professionals, they haven't put a plan in together to say, okay, what is the planned encounter? If someone comes in the door, what am I going to do? What we do as salespeople, many times we kind of fall into a ritual, and that is, oh, hey, come on in, and here's my flyer, have a look around, and if you have any questions, I'll be right here hiding in the kitchen. Okay, that's a failing grade, by the way. Are you going to give them the brochure? Yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. People have different topics on that. Are you going to make them sign a registry? Maybe yes, maybe no. People have different kind of thoughts around that. So here's what I do. I'm prepared in advance, and I know it's going to happen because I know someone comes into an open house, there's a limited number of things that are going to happen. So first off, I need to put myself in that person's shoes or in their state of mind. And I don't know what their state of mind is, but I know what the situation is. They're a person, and they're coming up to a home that they've probably never been in or seen. And they're a stranger, and I'm a stranger. It's a strange environment, and maybe it's cold outside, so I'm keeping the door closed, or maybe it's really hot, and I don't want to waste the air conditioner, so the door's closed. So someone's walking up to a house with a closed door. For gosh sakes, the first thing you need to do is make this person comfortable when they come in the front door. So here's what I do. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Don with ABC Real Estate, and you are? And you are? Interesting. So that's kind of a leading question. I don't want to make them uncomfortable. And there's another rule that I have, and that is if I'm giving something, then I have the right to ask for something in return. I gave them my name, and I gave them a warm welcome, and I told them what firm I'm with. I gave them 2 pieces of information. I want one back. What's your name? Sally. Great, Sally. Come on in. So I intentionally take a couple of steps back, and I draw Sally in and let her get comfortable with the new environment. But I don't want there to be this crazy awkward pause and silence and this uncomfortable thing. Okay, thanks I drew you in. Creepy. So what you want to do is for what I do, I don't know what you want to do, but here's what I do. At that point, I make an educational statement. So I'm creating a preparatory statement or a preparatory scenario to establish some ground rules, and that is I'm the one who's giving information. Isn't that lovely? So I might say something like this: Sally, I'm Don with ABC Real Estate. Come on in. Make yourself comfortable. This home that you're walked into is 3 bedrooms. It's 2.5 baths, and it's got a 2-car garage. Incredible finished basement, and really big backyard. I don't know if you noticed that. Okay, great. So what am I doing here? I'm kind of giving some information, but I don't want to just trail off and stop. I gave something, which means I'm going to ask for something in return. Now, some people have you sign a registry, but here's what I do. I'll say, after I go through my little description of the property, I'll pick up my phone and I'll say, let me send you the property flyer. There's a lot of information on it. And what was your phone number? And I wait and wait, and I only have to wait about 2 seconds, and they say, oh, it's 555-1212. They give me the information really quickly, and then what do? I text them a picture of the property flyer. How smooth. Now, it's taken me 30 seconds. I have this person's telephone number, and I've got at least their first name. Am I being manipulative? I don't think so, because here's the deal. I'm having an open house. Am I going to sell the house I'm sitting in? Odds are probably 3%, maybe 6% of the time that happens. So what I'm trying to achieve in my open house is I'm trying to get information. Not going to get information unless I ask questions. The number one thing I have to get first is contact information. If you have a 3 or 4 hour home, if you have a 3 or 4 hour open house and you don't get anyone's contact information, you have people coming in and out and in and out. You're having a little small talk. You're not in the program, and you are not strategically asking questions in the manner in which you should to get information back. Now, I want this to be comfortable, and I want you to work in your delivery, because I don't want this to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to ask for the phone number now. How am I going to do that? Hi, I'm Don, and welcome. I'm with ABC Real Estate. Welcome to my open house. It's 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. Got 2-car garage. I'm sure you maybe have noticed big fenced-in backyard. It's an incredible home. Let me send you the property information. What's your phone number? Got it. Boom. So I've got the phone number, and they gave them some information, and now I'm going to send them on their way. And so I'll say something like, great, have a quick look around, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be right here. Now, the big difference is I don't stop talking after that point. What I'm doing is I'm pulling them in, I'm inviting them to take a look at the house, and they're comfortable. And as soon as we break eye contact and they take a step in one direction, I'm going to start in on my interrogation if I don't have another person coming in the door. So lobby management and interrogation management is about understanding the rhythm of your traffic flow. If I open the door and 6 groups come in at the same time, hey, it's a great problem to have. I'd rather get 6 telephone numbers very quickly than try to get a highly detailed story about one person. My goal here is to collect leads. Okay, they take a step off. Hey, have a quick look around. And if you have any questions, I'll be right here. Now, as soon as they take a step off, boom, I'm going to ask them some more questions. I need to see what their toleration is and their motivation is for answering my questions. They might be highly motivated to purchase right now. In fact, 12% of the people who come into an open house anywhere, 12%, are going to buy a house someplace in 12 months. So I've got like a 2 or 3%, 4% chance that this person that I'm talking to right now when they come in the door, they're ready to write a purchase agreement right now. They're ready, able, and willing. And if I don't ask great questions, I'm not going to get there. Now, I don't want to seem too pushy, so I'm going to start with some basic experience questions. Now, a lot of realtors will say something like, well, how'd you hear about us? How'd you hear about us? You know, I'd rather have you say something than nothing, but that's probably not my favorite question. What I would much rather do is have you craft out what your interrogation is going to look like. So they come in, you hand them the information, they take a step off. I'm going to get an experience question off right then and there. So tell me a little bit about your current home, right? So tell me a little bit about your current home. Now, that might seem awkward and aggressive, but what I'm trying to do is at least challenge this person enough to stop and slow them down. They might say all sorts of things. They might say, well, we're neighbors and we live up the street. Okay, great, they're a neighbor. Oh, okay, is that important information when they're coming into an open house? I think it is. They're already familiar with the neighborhood. So they might be someone who has to sell a property before they buy a property. They might be coming into my open house just to value their property and try to get an understanding of what the market is. Or C, none of the above. They're just nosy. I'm fine either way because I got their contact information. So tell me a little bit about your current home. Or I might ask a question about the neighborhood. So tell me, do you currently live here in this neighborhood, right? So I didn't say, are you a neighbor? Are you a nosy neighbor? Or I might ask this question. So how did you discover this neighborhood? How did you discover this neighborhood? Great question. How did you come by this neighborhood, right? So I didn't say, how'd you find me here today? Or because the person might answer, well, I saw your sign outside. It said open house, and so I came through the door. All right, Captain Obvious, congratulations. I want you to be very intentional about this first 1 or 2 questions that you get off, because it's going to establish a pattern that you're not going away. You're going to ask this person questions. Now, do I want to hinder them from looking at the house? I don't. But you have to be able to get these questions off so you can understand and grade your follow-up and understand how this person fits into your business. It's not up to you to fit into their world. It's up to you to measure this person with questions. So tell me a little bit about how did you discover this neighborhood? Oh, well, we live up the street and we rent a 2-bedroom house. And, we relocated last year from Cincinnati because the company and yada, yada, yada. So I'm off to the races. And so they say the company, and so I might say, oh, well, what do you do at ABC Company? Because I'm trying to get towards capacity and ability questions. They might say, well, I'm the chief financial officer, or I'm the chief executive officer, or they might say, well, I'm in building maintenance, okay? Now, I'm not casting dispersions on your job title. What I'm trying to do is understand sometimes job titles have something to do with money. All right, so my next question is urgency question, right? So I know I'm skipping through very fast. I didn't go through all the detailed experience questions because I'm already in a dialogue. And I didn't go through all the rest of the ability questions because the next question I might have to ask might seem a little bit pushy in someone I've only been in a relationship with for 45 seconds. Oh, so what do you do at ABC Company? Well, I'm the chief executive officer. My next question isn't going to be, wow, that must pay a lot of money. Are you going to pay cash for the house, or are you interested in using a mortgage? I'm not going to ask that. It's too early, but I am going to go to my next category, okay, which is I'm trying to determine urgency. So I have an ability question out of the way, and I'm trying to get urgency out of the way. And the question's this. Oh, okay, so you relocated last year, and so when you did that, were you kind of in a bind or in a hurry? Oh my gosh, yeah, not familiar with the city, and what we wanted to do is just kind of get in and establish, but we really, really love this neighborhood. Ding, 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 ding. I have just hit a requirement. Like, I love this neighborhood. I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Oh, really? So what is it about this particular neighborhood that you've fallen in love with? Oh, well, the neighbors are incredible, and everyone has been so kind and so generous. And, relocating is sometimes scary. And so, but we've made a lot of friends here, and our kids slid, boom, right into the school. And little Jimmy's in 3rd grade. Checkmate. They rent a home in the area, and they're already established the fact that they love the neighborhood because they love the people and the school system. Okay, you're 60 seconds into this conversation. Where am I going to head from this point? Well, I'm going to let them look at the house. I'm not going to keep pushing. If I can get 3 questions off before they start touring the house, I'm doing great. The first question was, what the heck is your name and your phone number, right? And maybe my next question is, how are you familiar with this neighborhood? Oh, well, we live here, blah, blah, blah. And then they offered some additional tidbit of information. We got relocated by the company. I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Oh, that's really exciting. how did that move go? I could have asked another experience question. So, oh my gosh, you relocated. Did it work out okay? And then they might have said, we love this neighborhood. And it would have hit my requirement category. Now, for goodness sakes, I just went through 5 or 6 minutes or 7 minutes of explanation in what might be a 60-second or 30 or 45-second interaction. Why the heck is it so important that you have got this memorized and this understanding already under control? Because this stuff unfolds really quickly in real time. They're not going to wait for you to get ready to ask the right question. You need to be prepared to get to your next question. So it's going pretty smooth. Can we put these people in the car and go drive them around and show them property yet? I don't think so. So let's just say that they're really willing to answer questions, and let's keep going forward. Now, I tried to ask an urgency question because urgency is really important when I prioritize my follow-up and try to figure out where these people are in the process. I didn't get an answer. So I need to go back. I'm taking an assessment in real time. I need to go back and I need to ask an urgency question. And I already know a little bit about them. They live in the neighborhood and they kind of moved because of a relocation. And so maybe an urgency question for me might be something like this, with a preparatory statement and then a question. Well, it seems to me like you guys really like the neighborhood, right? So that's a tie down. They've already said they like the neighborhood. Well, it seems to me like you really like the neighborhood. So there's a 100% chance that I'm going to be in agreement with that. And then I'm going to ask this. Now, if it comes to the house, is there anything that you'd want to change about it, right? So I'm trying to understand, did they make a compromise when they moved into this property when they initially moved? And so I want them to dream, right? So I'm asking them to dream. Is there anything that you change? Like if you had all the time in the world, if you had more time to make a choice, would you still make that same selection for the same house? Now, I know you love the neighborhood, right? At which point, they're going to still bring me into a requirement, but I'm looking for a point of pain. I'm looking for a tension point where they say, we did move quickly, and man, I wish, we could have had that third car garage, or I wish we could have had the extra bedroom, or we didn't really know that we were going to end up buying a St. Bernard a month after we moved in. We need a bigger backyard with a fenced-in home site. Okay, why am I drilling down to try to find the pain point? Because if I can't find the issue, I don't know what the motivation is, and I can't understand what the time frame is. Now, I'm kind of dancing around time frame, but I might just come out and say, so help me understand, when were you thinking about making a move? Or when it comes to the move, when it comes to your next move, do you have a goal in mind? I love that question. When it comes to planning out your next move, do you have a goal in mind for time frame? So it's kind of gentle, and I didn't say, well, when do you want to move? I kind of stretched it out a little bit. It became more conversational. So urgency. So when it comes to planning out your next move, do you have a goal in mind when it comes to your time frame, right? So I kind of made a preparatory statement there, and the preparatory statement actually came after the initial statement and then the question. Sounds complicated, but if you just listen to what I said and maybe try to repeat it. So when it comes to your next move, with regard to time frame, do you have a goal in mind, right? 3 components. So when it comes to your next move, when you're thinking about time frame, have you established a goal when you'd like to move, right? Am I being verbose, that is using a lot of extra words? Maybe, but I'm trying to create conversation around urgency and time frame. So some people might just come out, you might be comfortable to say, so when were you thinking about moving? Well, I'm thinking about it right now, but that doesn't mean I have a goal in mind to actually move. I love the word goal associated with a question, because goals, as we know as professionals, are specific, measurable, they're reasonable, they're attainable. So if I apply the word goal to someone's conditional statement, what I'm trying to do is quantify that a little bit tighter without actually coming right out and asking, when do you need to move, right? Or when it comes to moving, are you hot, warm, or cold? Like there's just all kinds of statements you can make that maybe aren't great. This is why it's important to methodically go through this. So now we have experience, urgency, ability. Now, I know they're renting a house up the street, so they're not contingent, but what other factors are in play? So when it comes to asking the money question or the ability question, it seems like a lot of realtors and sales professionals shy away from it. If you're a mortgage person, this is your entire world. But for a lot of other folks, the financial part becomes complicated. Part of this is because maybe we need to have a little more education around basic financing. But the other thing is maybe we're not bold enough to really step forward, which is why you have to practice these ability questions. So the ability question, finance question, for me, I love this type of question. I might say, I might put out an educational statement and then a question. For example, well, as you well know, mortgage is broken into three components: your down payment, your credit, and then your income, right? So when it comes to those three buckets, are any of those points of concern for you? Do you have any concern around those three things? Why is that important? I don't necessarily know if this person's a first-time buyer or not because I didn't ask them, right? They said they were renting, but they may have purchased a home before. They might not be familiar with the mortgage process. But I'm also using the educational statement as a transition into asking the ability question or the finance question. I might say this. So when it comes to financing your next property, there's, money is, three buckets, right? You got the income, the down payment, your credit. Out of those three things, do you have any concerns? Do you have any concerns about any of those things within the process? Great question. Because then they're going to have to sit and think, no, I don't know. Maybe, I know we got the down payment and I've been on my job and yada, yada, but they're not asking, they didn't say anything about their credit, right? Why are they avoiding the credit? They might be avoiding it. They might not be avoiding it, but you might want to have a follow-up question. With another educational statement, about 20% of Americans have incorrect or inaccurate information on their credit report. When's the last time you pulled your own credit and took a look at it? Great question. So I'm talking about money, I'm educating, I'm softening up the questions. An experience question around money or ability might be this. So in the past, have you ever mortgaged a home? Are you familiar with the process? Pretty good question. I like this question, and that is, are you currently working with a lender that you're comfortable with, right? So one of the questions I'd probably avoid if I was a realtor, sales professional, which I am, would be this. Are you pre-qualified with a lender? Is it a horrible question? It's not a horrible question, but it just doesn't have any finesse. It doesn't have any grace. Are you pre-qualified with a lender? Yes, I am. Oh, okay, well, let's get started. I'm not getting enough information for my comfort level to go show property to this person. If someone hands me a letter of pre-qualification from their bank and I look at it, 9 times out of 10, it's not an underwriter's statement. What it is a marketing piece that says you're pre-qualified up to $900,000. And it's got asterisks at the bottom of it. And if you meet all the criteria for the underwriting? Well, you don't have any of that. How do I make somebody a little bit more comfortable around the finance questions? I'm offering educational piece. I'm giving context. I'm asking a question. I'm asking a follow-up question. I'm offering an education piece. I'm asking a question. It's a rhythm and it's a dance. Tell me a little bit about your past experience with mortgage. That's an experience question that has to do with financing. I even use the word experience. So when it comes to financing your home, have you been through, or when it comes to financing your next purchase, have you been through that process before? Okay, yes, we were. And I'm like, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Like command. And then they share a little bit. And then I say, so are you going to be using the same lender that you used the last time? Or are you open to maybe having me help you select a lender going forward, right? Because I'm trying to get my affiliate in there, right? I'm taking your temperature. What is your relationship with your past lender? Is it good? Is it bad? So when it comes to a mortgage, where are you in the process? Oh, we're pre-qualified with the lender. I'm like, oh, okay. So have you already provided them additional paperwork, right? Have you already started to provide them additional paperwork? And they look at you and they say, well, I know we're pre-qualified. Oh, okay. Well, when it comes to mortgage, they're going to want to see your source of funds for your down payment. You have to document your income. That's usually tax returns. And I'm sure they maybe still have to pull your credit. No, they pulled our credit and that was fine, but we haven't given them any other information. Got it. Is this person truly pre-qualified with a lender? Not so much. You might want to put them in your car, but I would recommend not doing driving them around just yet. Okay, at this point we're halfway through, and so let's just say for the sake of argument, we went through experience, urgency, and ability. Experience, urgency, and ability categories for my story. Let's just say I got satisfactory answers in all those, right? So experience, urgency, ability. Next is status, requirements, and core motivation. So remember, status has to do with who are the parties to this transaction, who's the decision maker, where does the power lie. So before I take somebody out and start showing them property, I'm going to ask them some questions about what's the hierarchy of control in this relationship. So, but it's pretty simple questions. You might want to ask a question like this. So when it comes to the paperwork, is anyone else going to be involved? I love that question. So if I'm talking to a couple or if I'm talking to a single person, it just doesn't matter. So for this open house example, let's say it's a couple and they're both present. Husband and wife are both present at the time that I'm asking the questions. But I still ask the question. So when it comes to doing the paperwork or writing in the offer, it's just for you two, or is anyone else going to be in the decision, right? Or when it comes to selecting the property, is anyone else going to be helping you make a decision, right? When it comes to selecting the property, is anyone else going to help you make the decision? Why is that important? Because they might say all kinds of things. They might say, well, my rich Aunt Susan's going to give me some money, and so she does want to see the house before because she's going to give us money for the down payment. Okay, well, there's another decision maker out there. This person might be an ally to the process. They might be adversarial to the process. We don't know. Well, we have to go figure out who that person is. Or they might say this. Well, we do want to make sure that our kids see the house before we buy it. Now, this is important because people put a lot of power. They give their kids a lot of power, and this is a whole other discussion, right? But at the end of the day, what is the nature and the practicality of that power? Is this a couple that's being bossed around by a 5-year-old? Well, maybe that could be the case, but maybe it could just be as simple as, well, we do want to show the kids a couple of different homes and warm them up to the fact that we're going to be moving out of the old neighborhood and into the new school. So we're trying to introduce it. But, at the end of the day, as a sales professional, I need to find out, does the kid have veto authority? Like, how important are those kids' needs and wants are? The adults are making the transaction. The adults are signing paperwork. Is there somebody else in this process that's going to be that I have to negotiate with or present to? Am I presenting to a 5-year-old? Probably not. But the truth is, I have to qualify and quantify the impact of potential veto power on someone in the status category of my decision-making process of my story. How do I ask the question about the 5-year-old? How do I ask the question about someone else giving me money? Stick to the paperwork. It's really easy. Is anyone else going to be involved in the paperwork? Or when it comes to writing an offer, is it just going to be the two of you? Or when it comes to doing the paperwork, is it just the two of you? Or is there anyone else that you need to include on the decision-making process? Now, don't spend a lot of time here, but the truth is, you better figure this out before you start showing property. All right, status. Is anyone else going to be involved in this decision? I think this is a really easy question. When it comes to finalizing the house choice or to make that final choice, is anyone else going to be involved? And so maybe at that point is when they say, well, You know, our kids definitely are important to us, but we want to make sure we get what we want. But we will have them come by and like take a look at it before we make a final decision. Perfect. Now I have a strategy kind of outlined. I'm going to show some properties. I'm going to get some feedback. Then there's going to be that final blessing. So maybe the final blessing is the kids, or maybe it's the aunt, or whoever it is. Status questions. Don't avoid them. They're super important when you're talking about that critical path. All right, requirement questions. Basic questions. The reason why we go through all these more complicated questions before we get to the requirement question, the basic needs, basic utility around the house, which is how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what size of property, how close does it have to be to work. The reason why we are kind of letting off on the emotional tension once we get the requirements is I'm setting us up for core motivation. So I'm not just going to ask a requirement question like, how many bedrooms do you need? And they're going to say 4. Okay, let's move on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce between core motivation and requirements. I'm going to take a relatively easy feature and I'm going to tie it to a potentially more benefits or emotionally tied, grounded place. Because when it comes to motivation questions, these are typically powerful questions and they're usually more emotional. They usually start getting into the core of the matter. So I might say, okay, I'm sorry, how many bedrooms were you looking for? Well, we needed 4 bedrooms. And I'm going to ask a follow-up question. I'm going to say something like, so 4 bedrooms, is that office space included in that? Or is that a guest room? I'm trying to quantify what, if there's a possible blocker or limit or constraints or detail around the requirement. So they say, well, yeah, no, 4 bedrooms. We absolutely need a guest room. Absolutely need a guest room. Okay. And then we also need an office with a door that shuts. So really, I guess we would be okay with 2 bedrooms and an office, but we need to have a private guest room. And that guest room has to have its own bathroom and it has to be on the first floor. Okay. Maybe I uncovered a little bit earlier when I was talking about status that periodically, my in-laws stay and they're not so good with the stairs, right? So they're a little bit older. They don't want to negotiate the stairs. So now I know I need a downstairs bedroom with a bathroom. Why is that so important? I didn't find that until I went into requirements and tied to motivation, but it's actually a status question. Because the truth of the matter is the person who's going to be staying in that downstairs bedroom who can't negotiate the stairs very well, they might be an ally or they might be a blocker. That actually might flush out my status question a little bit better. Requirements. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? Simple questions. So tell me a little bit about how you're going to be utilizing these bedrooms. Office space, guest space, is it a playroom for the kids, art studio, hobbies? Try to understand the use of the space and what they're doing in that space, not just that it's a feature space. We're trying to understand what the benefit is as we get into the motivation section. Okay, this brings us to our final category in our story topic, which is motivation or core motivation. Motivation questions are essential. There's a couple of things that's happening at this point in the process. By now, the person that you're interacting with is going to understand that you're professional and that you're in a process and that you're guiding them through a process of discovery. Hopefully, it doesn't feel like a heavy interrogation. You've been able to make it conversational. Core motivation is going to help you get to the meat of the matter. What are the things that are still holding you back, if anything, right? That's actually a pretty good question. We're trying to understand what is the key to action. What is the go forward? Are we able to move forward at this time with a transaction? Okay, so here's the type of questions I like to ask. I might make a preparatory statement and say, gosh, with everything we've covered up to this point, I understand that you're ready, able, and willing. You're fully qualified and it seems like you're really motivated because you don't want to live in the 2 bedrooms any longer. With that said, is there anything else that would hold you back? Is there anything else that would hold you back? No, I don't think so. I think we're ready to rock and roll. Or they might say, well, is there anything that, at this point, is there anything that holds you back? Well, we just really have to make sure that we find the right house, right? Okay. So you can ask a follow-up question because we already have a pretty good idea because you went through requirements. You're like, okay, yeah, of course you're going to buy the right house. I won't let you buy the wrong house. I'm not going to let that happen. So let's go back to requirements a little bit. I think we covered that in detail. We talked about the payment. That seemed to also make sense to you. So if we were able to find like that right house, like the one that was really your one of a kind that you really liked, is there anything else that would hold you back at this time, right? I'm trying to remove any of the impediments. If I'm getting objections that are coming up at this point in the process, they aren't always that logical because I've dealt with the money. I've dealt with the emotions of the past experience. I've identified the decision makers. We've got core requirements out and on the table. We've done a deep clean by the time we get to this point in the process. So maybe it goes like this. So with everything we've talked about, is there any reason at all, that you wouldn't want to go forward with the purchase of your home? If we found the right house for you today, would you then be okay with writing an offer, right? It's an if-then statement, trying to get into core motivation. At this point in the process, they're starting to feel the walls come in. I'm not trying to suffocate someone, but what I'm trying to do is help them identify, yep, we're in a process and we're taking a step and a step and a step. And that final step is we're gonna step over the threshold into your brand new house. Whoa, where'd that come from? They know that they're in a process. You know that they're guiding them. This is the point at which you're gonna flush out any final objections that's holding someone back in terms of time frame. Sometimes people will just stop and say, well, we really just have to think about it some more. Okay? And guess what? They might really just have to think about it. Why? Because their brain is moving faster than their emotional staging. And that's no accident, right? Because I'm pulling them through a process to identify, are they ready, able, and willing to contract right now? I'm trying to understand their urgency. I'm trying to understand what are the final impediments. Is there any roadblocker between now and success? And we identify it and we deal with it. It might be nothing. It might be a smoke screen. They might actually need more time because they're just trying to have their emotional staging catch up with where they are in their psychological process. Congratulations, you made it through the chapter, and it was a long one, but it's just loaded with a ton of great information about interrogating your buyer. If you're struggling with this aspect of interrogation and discovery, for goodness sakes, get on my calendar. I'm available to you. Connect with me. I can help you develop your own strategy around interrogating your buyer and getting better discovery around your buyer. Send me an email or give me a phone call. I look forward to helping you in any way that I can.